Steelers have reported to the North Shore, and they were greeted with a sight for sore eyes as Big Ben threw with the team for the first time in almost a year. We have the latest as the players start to ramp up workouts and get ready for a new season. You're watching Steelers Training Camp 2020.
It's Steelers Training Camp 2020, presented by FedEx.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second of 4 Steelers Training Camp shows here on KDKA TV. I'm Bob Pompeani as we get you set for the 2020 season. Tonight, Rich Walsh and Gerry Dulac will break down Ben Roethlisberger. Merril Hoge will look at this year's top draft pick, Chase Claypool. Missi Matthews will take you inside of Heinz Field to get a look at this camp and what it looks like from the inside. But first, we welcome back my booth broadcast partner, Mr. Charlie Batch, who joins us from his home. What's up, C-Batch? Good to see you.
You too, man. It's great to be back, and I'm ready to talk some football.
And that's what we're going to do. Plenty of that coming up here in the next 30 minutes. You know, as we talked about in our first show last week, Heinz Field is the home for training camp and conditioning as we approach the scheduled start of this NFL regular season. The ramp-up period began as all veterans or rookies showed up at practice this week, including James Washington, who was cleared to return on Friday from the COVID reserve list. Head coach Mike Tomlin says even though camp is much different this season, they're not worried about it because all NFL teams are in the same boat.
It's unusual to kind of be in the mode that we're in. We all, those of us that have been in this business, we kind of have an internal clock, and there's things that you anticipate doing around August the 5th or so annually. And the fact that we're not there is an adjustment, but we're working to manage our emotions and focus on the things that we are able to do.
Charlie, how strange is it for players to be going through a camp like this one? And what do you think is the most important thing they need to focus on really over the first few weeks?
Well, I think for them as they start this kind of reminds me of the 2011 season when we were during a lockout. A lot of the guys, we weren't around each other, but for those younger guys who were trying to make the roster, at least there were preseason games that they can compete and show that they can make the roster. Right now, you don't have that. So now that everybody is all on the same schedule, you're talking about strength and conditioning, but now how can you now expedite that learning curve for these young guys on this roster to prove that they can maybe make a chance or have a chance to make this roster and cooperate throughout this season. So it's going to be interesting to see, and it's just a weird all around for everybody in this situation.
All right, as a former leader on the team, as you were, how important are the veteran players when it comes to kind of reinforcing the message about staying away from places where guys might come in contact with this virus?
Yeah, that's always going to be the toughest part because you can't control what happens when they go home. But the veteran guys, trust me, they're going to have conversation with those guys because the veterans on this team, they know they have a really good chance this year to do something special. So they want to make sure that they can now eliminate all of those distractions on the back end and just focus on football. And if they come in here, they're going to continue to remind everybody, stop reading the newspaper, stop reading the headlines, and stop, because we still have to go out there and prove that we can get it done on the field and stop reading everything else outside of our particular building that we need to focus on, that these guys can go out here and play and compete and get off to a hot start.
Yeah, that's very important, no doubt. You know, it's been a long offseason for Ben Roethlisberger after surgery and a long rehab, but this week, it was the video that people wanted to see. Rich Walsh joins me now with more on the return of Ben Roethlisberger on the field, throwing the football for the very first time since that injury. Rich?
Well, Bob, Ben Roethlisberger says his arm feels great, which is a great sign for the start of training camp. It was the #1 topic heading into this season. The Steelers need Big Ben healthy, and he assured us he is.
My arm feels really, really good. We threw a lot of balls yesterday, and kind of waking up today to see how it was going to feel, and it feels great.
Which hasn't been the case the last few camps, according to Ben.
I've had a little bit of an injury in that elbow for quite a few years, but just something I've kind of dealt with. Never serious enough to do anything with.
Never serious until this pass to Juju Smith-Schuster against Seattle.
I just really felt a different pain and different discomfort than I've ever felt, and it was kind of shooting down my arm. And so I knew something was different at that moment.
The pain's gone now, and he wants to keep it that way, so Ben is on a pitch count through training camp. so he's healthy for opening day in New York.
Obviously, this is a little different training camp because you're not really doing one-on-ones and you're not doing 7-on-7 right now. So right now we're just building up and working on timing with receivers, tight ends, running backs, things like that. So I have had no setbacks. It feels really, really good. And so I'm really excited about that.
Not only was his arm a concern coming into the season, but social media was abuzz about his beard and his weight this offseason.
I'm actually lighter than I've been since, probably 14 years. And so just, I feel really good. I feel strong. I feel healthy. I feel young, if you can feel young at this age.
Ben is lighter and motivated, maybe more motivated than any other year to prove he can still play at an elite level.
I'm not saying I've got 10 years left in me, but I definitely feel like I've got some really good years left in me. So that was definitely a motivating factor, was coming back and showing that I still have it in the tank. I still have a lot to give this team. I still have a lot to give the fans, and I still want to win Lombardis. And I say that with a plural on the end.
All right, take a look at this. As you can see, the Steelers really missed the production that Big Ben can bring for this team last season. Roethlisberger led the league in attempts, completions, passing yards in the last full season 2 years ago. He almost doubled the amount of touchdowns that the tandem of Rudolph and Hodges threw last year. Now, Mike Tomlin also said Ben's velocity is excellent, but also added this week maybe his spiral could be a little tighter, but nothing that's alarming. Now, Charlie, I want to bring you in on this one. You know Ben maybe better than anyone in the city other than his wife. What do you think he can do? Can he repeat those numbers from 2018 almost after a full season off?
Yeah, I think he can. And when you throw for 5,100 yards during that season, trying to get back to that point, it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be more pressure on the receivers to get open, to be able to create those throwing lanes, to be able to get back to those numbers. But when I look at what that press conference of Mike Tomlin, he knows he's not going to get Ben Roethlisberger from 10 years ago, but he does know how to light fire under people. And the one comment that he made in there, and he said, yeah, Ben can put a cape on, he can come out of the booth, but I like to see his spiral tighter. That's direct message to Ben Roethlisberger, because he knows he's going to hear that and be reminded in the media, and he knows that's going to light a fire under his eyes to continue for him to go out there and have perfection throughout practice.
Just great to see him back on the field. That's the first step. Coming up, a look at the Heinz Field changeover. Missi Matthews is coming up with the standard. That's next.
Welcome back to Steelers Training Camp 2020, presented by FedEx.
Well, The Standard is a new online series which you can access on all Steelers social media platforms. And tonight, Missi Matthews of Steelers.com takes a look at some of the changes that Heinz Field had to make as a football team prepares for a season in the middle of a pandemic.
For the past 19 years, Heinz Field has been the home of numerous Steelers milestones.
K, the bus has 10,001 yards.
Hard-fought victories, faces of the franchise, and multiple Hall of Famers. It's a place where we honor legends of the past, welcome new talent, and a resurgence of a dominant defense.
T.J. Watt. It's picked up by Mika Fitzpatrick. Look out! Steamrolled by Cameron Hayward.
Other than Steelers games, the stadium has played host to countless other events.
Heinz Field is multi-purpose. It's the home of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the University of Pittsburgh Panthers. But, we host a number of other worldwide events. We've had every major touring group come through here that's does stadiums. Winter Classic hockey game, and we've done the Stadium Series hockey game. So we use that template somewhat to map out this for training camp and to host the team here.
With the implementation of social distancing measures, the Steelers repurposed many parts of the stadium to fit their needs. Clubs are now meeting rooms, the weight room is set up in a concourse, and all 4 locker rooms are being used by the players and coaches.
The stadium was the obvious choice for training camp because things are centrally located. Everybody's together, but The amount of space we have at Heinz Field is immense. In our locker room, it's not just the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room that's being used.
And that's where the offensive coaches will be at.
We're using the visiting pro locker room.
Where the defense will be at with their defensive coaches.
We're using the visiting college locker room.
It's connected with the defensive room, so we'll be sharing that space.
And to some extent, we're even using the University of Pittsburgh locker room.
The lockers are one guy per 2 lockers essentially, and it's just a lot of room.
So that we can space our players out so there's adequate spacing and there's an element of safety and distance so that we can better protect not only our athletes, but coaches and staff as well.
It's nice to be at Heinz Field because we're familiar with our surroundings and setting. This camp is unique for us. We haven't seen these guys, so we have to bring extra stuff, you know. You just have to be ready for all scenarios.
The weight room was the most creative one, and that was probably the most challenges we faced.
The process of training camp and having a training camp at Heinz Field from a weight room standpoint isn't bad at all.
This area here from that gate is kind of going to be open. That's why I say this looks kind of like a galley-style kitchen. Racks over here, dumbbells over here.
I mean, we have a magnificent space from a size standpoint in a veranda-style area right outside our locker room. So from a logistical standpoint, it's very easy for the players. We had some great assistance from Torque Fitness and Design Fitness to help with this whole process of laying the flooring, which was an absolute task. Nate Fietner came in, Randy Fietner's son, and he was there helping laying flooring down. I mean, it was a massive event to lay down that amount of floor, expediting flooring, expediting equipment. We didn't have to take our racks and try to move them. Everything else is ready to go, it's set.
And we've enclosed that, and we've brought proper air conditioning and air movement devices in to handle this.
Compared to our other training camp settings, it may be even a little bit better because of the amount of space that we have.
Good stuff there. Thank you, Missi. And that was a portion of the new online series, The Standard, which you can watch on the Steelers' website and social media platforms. All right, Charlie, based on what you've seen, what impresses you the most about how the Steelers transformed Heinz Field into really a training camp facility for the very first time?
Yeah, I think you saw it right there at the end with the weight room. That was something that I worried and wondered how they were going to recreate that, because that's something at Heinz Field that you never really had to worry about. Locker rooms, they were fine, but that weight room, they did a fantastic job of setting it up and understanding what they were trying to accomplish. Very well done.
Yes, indeed, and that was a monumental task, no doubt. Thanks, Charlie. For more insight on the transitioning of Heinz Field into a training camp facility, Rich Walsh standing by with the Post-Gazette beat writer, Gerry Dulac.
Thanks, Bob. As we just saw, Heinz Field has been turned into a practice facility for the first time. Gerry, what do you see is the team's biggest challenge moving camp to Heinz Field and dealing with the COVID-19 protocols?
You know, Rich, early on, before camp even started, the Steelers believed that being at St. Vincent College might be safer for them from a protocol standpoint, from a, quote, bubble standpoint. So I think that is the biggest challenge, is guys, veteran players or rookies, they're not staying in the same place. And Mike Tomlin talked about that the other day, his one fail, all fail. That's the biggest issue they're facing.
All right, as we've seen over the past few weeks, players are opting out this season due to COVID concerns. Are you surprised we haven't seen any from the Steelers yet?
Rich, I'm a little surprised. When you look at it, a perfect candidate would be James Conner, from with the cancer issues he had before. Even Cam Hayward, who has asthma. Those are the types of underlying conditions, and of course, in James Conner's case, severe underlying conditions that would prompt a player, maybe not them, but a player in general, to opt out. I'm a little surprised nobody has, but I'm not shocked.
All right, thanks, Gerry. We'll see you a little bit later in the show.
All right, guys, thanks. And we have much more ahead, including former Steeler Merril Hoge. He will join us with a preview of what we can expect from second-round pick wide receiver Chase Claypool. That is next.
Welcome back to Steelers Training Camp 2020, presented by FedEx.
Welcome back. You know, with no OTAs, no mini camps, limited on-field training camp availabilities, you might be wondering how young draft picks and rookies can possibly contribute this season. Former Steeler Merril Hoge profiles Chase Claypool and what his workload might look like this year.
Claypool. Big dish, touchdown for Claypool.
There's a lot to be excited about Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame. You know, the Steelers drafted him. You heard he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he has a wide radius to catch the ball, all true. But the thing that really stands out in tape that I like the most, that give him the best chance to transition to the NFL and be an impact player, is his subtleties in route running.
All right, here's a good example of Claypool, the right of the screen. Now this is going to be an out-breaking route. But I want you to watch the subtleties, the little wrinkles that he does well. Watch the stem of the route. He attacks the defender on the inside, keeping the defender's hips to the inside, and he's got him turning and running. Well, once you have him in that position, there is no way he can make an out-breaking move to defend Claypool. 2nd and 8, he attacks the defender on the inside. Now he makes it easy on the quarterback for a good throw to the outside. 2nd and 8, just turn to 1st and 10. This is my favorite play in studying Chase Claypool. He's at the top of the screen. Now here's what I love about him. He's got great speed. So some guys with great speed, they just run by you, and they can do that in college. In the NFL, you have to learn to utilize your speed, set up defenders, little wrinkles. Well, that's exactly what he does here. Let's watch what he does at the top of the route. See that little wiggle? He climbs the defender, sets the defender up, and then explodes past him. Well, when you do this, I don't care who the safety is in the NFL. If you'll do little things like this and maximize your speed, you're going to be dynamic, especially explosively vertically. And that's exactly what he did and he can do as he transitions to the National Football League.
There are a lot of things to like about Chase Claypool. A lot of people get caught up in his size and speed. Those are good things. But the things we saw on tape are just as important, maybe more important when you transition to the NFL, because it's the little things that help you become a great player. And he already does them fairly well, so you don't have to teach him. He already does them. And with the limited time they have had to work together, especially with Ben, it's going to help him be a major contributor, and a major contributor in an explosive way. So Steeler Nation, you got to be excited about Chase Claypool in this coming season.
Yeah, especially in that red zone. Charlie, with the limited practice time he's going to have, how do you think he will factor in this year when you're talking about, making an impact right off the bat?
And I think this is going to be a challenge for new Steelers wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard, coming in here trying to expedite that learning curve. But when you've played the position, the instant credibility is there for Chase and Ike. So he's going to go out there and do everything he can to be productive. This kind of reminds me of 2006, Santonio Holmes' rookie year. He started out slow because if you remember, he came out of Ohio State. They were in a quarter system, and he wasn't allowed to be around during OTA. So he started a little slow, but middle of the season, end of the season, man, he was something to be reckoned with. So I expect the same thing from Chase.
Yeah, not only is there a new receiver, but there is a new tight end on the roster as well, and that could turn out to be a major weapon, again, especially in the red zone for Ben Roethlisberger. With more on that, we send it back to Rich and Gerry D.
All right, thanks, Bob. Gerry, while Chase Claypool is a bit of an unknown at the NFL level, new tight end Eric Ebron does have a track record. How much of an impact could he make this year?
Well, Rich, I think he has the potential to have a big impact. This is a guy who's been in the NFL for 6 seasons, so it's not like he has a lot to learn about route trees and opposing defenses. He just has to get assimilated to the Steeler offense. But I think what helps is now the Steelers feel they have 2 NFL quality tight ends and something that they haven't had the past couple of years. So having Eric Ebron to pair with Vance McDonald gives them the ability to go back to those 2 tight end sets. And the one kind of little known thing about Vance McDonald that Steeler coaches like, they always like to say, get him in the green grass, which means that guy can run. And we saw what he did against Tampa Bay a couple of years ago to that poor safety.
All right, thanks a lot, Gerry. I can tell you I'm definitely looking forward to see what Eric Ebron can do in this offense.
I'm with you there, Rich.
Chris Conte still has nightmares about that. Coming up, we go behind the scenes at the Steelers annual photo day. This is really cool stuff. You don't want to miss it. Stick around right here on KDKA.
Welcome back to Steelers Training Camp 2020, presented by FedEx.
All right, guys, training camp ramp up is underway. Charlie, what are you most looking forward to seeing in the next couple of weeks?
I'm looking for some of these young guys to step up and get the coach's attention. They want to make sure that now when you go out here and put those pads on, that you're part of this rotation, because with limited reps, you have to go out here and make your move fast.
It's a big year for James Conner, Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm eager to see what they can do in a contract season.
Yeah, a lot of things to watch, no doubt, and we're getting closer to full contact, which should be happening in about a week and a half. Meantime, the players have had some time on their hands to go through some of the training camp obligations, and one of them is photo day, and we leave you now with a snapshot of players in uniform. For the very first time, we'll see you next Saturday for another edition of Steelers Training Camp 2020. Have a good week.
Give me a serious face, too. No? All right.
I can't.